Good afternoon. There's growing pressure on the government to intervene to support heavy industry struggling with soaring energy costs. Some Conservative MPs have now joined Labour in calling for ministers to provide financial help, with the British Chambers of Commerce describing the situation as dire for some small and medium-sized firms. Here's our business correspondent, Katie Prescott.
Our biggest customer is Ocado.
Brewing broth. These gas pans are simmering 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's little this business can do to cut its energy usage. Bills recently have been painful.
Energy prices going up is not what we need. My overheads are already extremely high as it is. And it's a concern, it's a deep concern about the viability of the business, and I don't want to pass that cost on to our customers. I'll do everything I can to avoid that.
Businesses don't have the cushion of an energy price cap. They tend to fix their bills a year or two in advance. So for those whose contracts are coming to an end at the moment,
so the bank was
it's
well
a really
prepared,
painful time. And it's even worse for companies like this one who don't have those contracts and pay their energy bills on a 3-monthly metered basis.
Steel, chemicals, industries with the heaviest energy consumption in the UK are seeing costs rocketing. To keep the furnaces burning, they're crying out for government support.
Absolutely right now. Gas prices are at an unprecedented level, and the businesses that manufacture the goods that we need are trying to operate under these unprecedented conditions.
And they're backed by some Conservative MPs representing industrial areas.
They need government support, either in direct support or a cap on their energy prices to allow them to continue in business. And it would be ludicrous that we will lose these high energy intensive businesses that we need for our economy.
But so far that support isn't forthcoming. The government says it's in regular contact with business groups to explore ways to manage the impact of rising global prices, and that this underscores the importance of building a strong, homegrown renewable energy sector to further reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. For now, though, businesses like this, facing a transport crunch and rising taxes, would like to see limits on how much they have to pay.
I'm doing everything I can to keep this business running. The last thing we need now is sky-high energy bills to top that.
Katie Prescott, BBC News.
American officials and representatives of the Taliban have met face-to-face for the first time since the militants took control of Afghanistan in August. The US, however, cautioned that the talks in the Qatari capital of Doha do not signal official recognition of Taliban rule. In Afghanistan, the funerals have been taking place of some of the victims killed in yesterday's suicide bomb attack in the northern city of Kunduz. Around 50 people died, with the Islamic State group saying it carried out the attack on a mosque. Well, our correspondent, Yogita Limai, is in Doha for us now. Do we have any indication, Yogita, as to how the talks are progressing?
Well, we've heard some time ago from Amir Khan Muttaqi, who is the acting acting foreign minister of the Taliban-appointed government, and he's here leading the delegation in Doha. He says that they want to improve relations with the international communities. And so this really is part of a series of efforts from the Taliban to try to gain international recognition. Some days ago, they met with the UK delegation in Kabul. In some time from now, they say they're also going to meet European officials. He said that the US has offered to help provide COVID-19 vaccines and humanitarian aid, but also warned that no one should interfere with the internal affairs of any country. It has been 3 weeks now since the Taliban banned girls from going to secondary schools in most parts of Afghanistan, and that's the backdrop against which these talks are happening. The Taliban are hoping to get international recognition because it's a very key step to the unblocking of foreign funding, which has been frozen to Afghanistan since they seized control of the country on the 15th of August. As far as the US is concerned, the key thing on their agenda is safe evacuation of US nationals and others in Afghanistan. They will be hoping to hold the Taliban to its commitment of allowing anyone who wants to leave the country and who has the right documents to do so, that they will indeed give safe passage to those people. In the past 3 weeks, there have been difficulties and delays in this process, and the US will be hoping to iron out those issues.
OK, Yogita, thanks for that. Yogita Limai there in Doha, in Qatar. Now, the government's latest coronavirus figures here show there were 34,950 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period. There were 133 deaths. That's of people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. 85.4% of the population aged 12 or over have now had their first dose of a COVID vaccine, and 78.5% have had 2 doses. Plans for a phone service aimed at protecting women out on their own have been announced by BT. The company's chief executive says development of the system began in the wake of the murders of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa. BT has contacted the Home Secretary about their plans, but some campaigners argue such a service doesn't tackle the deeper problem of male violence. Lebanon's electricity grid has shut down, leaving the country without power for the second weekend in a row. Fuel shortages forced its 2 largest power stations to cease operations as the country grapples with an economic and financial crisis. Officials say it's unlikely electricity supplies will resume before Monday. The wildlife campaigner Chris Packham and around 100 children have delivered a petition to Buckingham Palace calling on the royal family to rewild its estates. That means to restore the land to their natural states. Ecologists believe some of the estates would naturally be home to beavers and wild boar, as Simon Jones explains.
Taking their message direct to Buckingham Palace, campaigners say the royals must rewild. They're the biggest landowning family in the country, but it's said their estates use practices that degrade the land, like deer stalking and grouse shooting, and instead there are calls for it to be allowed to return to a more natural state.
Because of their global celebrity and the way they lead and other people follow, if they were to do this, it would be a fantastic gesture and significant at a time when we're rather tiring of people talking the talk, and we need them to be walking the walk. We need meaningful, positive action.
A petition signed by 100,000 people is delivered to the palace by 14-year-old Simeon, while his brother explains his concerns.
We're still quite young, and so we have a lot of time ahead of us. And by the way, the world is going, that may not be very pleasant because there's going to be so much chaos in the future.
Planting trees at Balmoral for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The royal estate say the royal family has a long-standing commitment to conservation, and they're constantly looking for new ways to improve biodiversity. Next month, senior members of the royal family are due to attend the Glasgow Climate Conference. Campaigners here say that would be the perfect opportunity for them to take a stand. They're calling it a polite protest, but one they hope will bring about change. Simon Jones, BBC News, Buckingham Palace.
The US Open tennis champion, Britain's Emma Raducanu, says she'll learn from her defeat at the Indian Wells tournament in California and take it as a lesson. It was the first competitive match for the 18-year-old after her momentous Grand Slam victory last month. Mike Bushell has more details.
And from Great Britain, please welcome Emma Raducanu.
A new feeling for Britain's teenage star, walking out onto court as the big name, the world superstar, and in terms of the world rankings, the favourite. Emma Raducanu, the world number 22 now, up against an opponent only just inside the top 100. And early on, Raducanu lived up to this billing. An excellent start against Alexander Sasnovich of Belarus, holding to love in the opening game and roared on by a supportive crowd of 4,000 for the night session. But remember, the British number one is still only 18. She's also now without a permanent coach after parting ways with long-standing mentor Andrew Richardson. And there's no substitute for experience. And 27-year-old Sasnovich took control as Raducanu was forced into errors and seemed anxious to close out rallies quickly on a slower court than she's used to. And after the 6-2, 6-4 straight sets defeat, Raducanu said she was glad in a way she'd lost, as she can learn from it as she develops in the weeks, months and years ahead. Andy Myrie, though, is still involved in Indian Wells and was relieved to have his wedding ring tied to his trainers once more, after both were lost and then found handed in by lost property. And he had a spring in his step as he eased past Frenchman Adrian Manarino to reach the second round. Mike Bushell, BBC News.
That's it. I'll be back with the late news at 10:15. Until then, bye for now.